Please welcome Fortune's senior editor, Ellen McGirt.
Hello, everyone. Happy International Women's Day. That was nice. When she rises, we all rise. And just so tuck this away for later, one of my goals today is to get us all on our feet and rise together by the end of our brief time together. I want to begin by thanking Julie Sweet and Ellen Shook and Stacy Jones and all my cousins in equality at Accenture for including me in this great convening, but also for always sharing their wisdom and their research and their ideas and their spirit and the risks that they take personally and professionally to make the world better for everyone. They make it look easy, but I know it isn't. And one of the reasons why I know it isn't is because it's my job to know. I write a daily column for Fortune called Race Ahead. It's almost 2 years old. I cover race, culture, and inclusive leadership, and I try to be as intersectional as I can. Some days are better than others, but I've certainly learned a lot. It sounds simple when I just rattle it off that way, but actually the world is so complicated these days, which actually leads me to the second poll question of the day, I think. You can take it at your leisure because we will show your answers at the end of the next panel, which is how optimistic are you that we're moving to a more equitable society? So when I started this beat, I originally thought I'd be covering data, thank you, inspirational chief human resources officers and inspirational CEOs, thank you, and how not to be a jerk at the Halloween party. Not white supremacist rallies, police shootings, the global history of colonization, and whether Robert E. Lee was a good guy or not. My take, he was problematic, but I do think we should talk about it. So basically, I write a daily column about race in America, and I want to eat glass by Tuesday. It is a complicated, complicated subject. And my confession is, I would never have pitched this beat. It wasn't my idea. 2 years ago, back when I was still young, I was operating under a previous mindset, one that had actually served me pretty well in business, even before I joined journalism, which is where these conversations, these incredibly rich but difficult conversations about gender and race and equity and intersectionality and systemic change, where we're really losing talent from birth to C-suite, would not be welcome in the business world and not be welcome in the newsroom. And we need to talk about these things. It takes 20 years to grow an entry-level employee and then a couple dozen more to get the best out of them. A lot goes wrong for people during this time, and we need these people in the mix if we are going to thrive and survive as a society. Things like the generational wealth gap between communities of color and their white counterparts all around the world, from the inadequate schools that disproportionately target youth of color for neglect and punishment while steering girls of all hues away from science and math, problems with the criminal justice system, to the fact, at least here in the US, that Black women are more likely than their peers to die before, during, or after childbirth, that Indigenous women are disproportionately the victims of random and intimate partner and police violence. And 50% of transgender women will report being assaulted during their lifetimes, and it's often in the workplace. And that low-income women, often immigrants, people of color who care for the elderly, who work in fast food and corporate kitchens or in domestic services, have no shot at breaking out of the cycle of poverty and are often unsafe. And that right now, today, on this beautiful purple-colored day, there are women striking and marching all over the world to call attention to their urgent and still unmet needs. Because when she rises, we all rise, and we have the charts and graphs to prove it. And yet the issues still persist. So I talked to Ursula Burns recently, one of my other favorite CEOs who I really love and admire, but it wasn't a particularly happy call. When we discovered there was only one Black woman on our most recent Fortune's Most Powerful Women's list, one of our most beloved franchises, we wanted to figure out why, so we commissioned a story. And I gave her a call. So this is what she said. 30 years ago, when I started working, literally the chances of me making it were worse than minuscule. We talked about all of the reasons I cited above, and also the fact that power doesn't make it easy for women of any color to get access to the real leadership juice, which is the developmental opportunities associated with products and P&L. So now look at the numbers that we have already coming. Unless you're bringing women from Mars, she said, there's not that many people coming. We have a problem. And then she said a bunch of other salty things that I'm not going to repeat. All of it is a lot to cover in a newsletter. So it was my two bosses, Alan Murray and Cliff Leaf, the head of Fortune brand at the time and the head of the magazine at the time, respectively, who saw an idea, an opportunity in the marketplace of ideas, and listened to some powerful people who are readers. Many of you are here today, and thank you. And were then persuaded that there was a place for Fortune in this difficult conversation. And they started taking some strategic risks in print, in purpose, in you, and in me. Advertising support doesn't help because business case, business case, business case. But that they also personally care about the world and the people who work in the world, and the idea that business has a role in fostering real change in the world was the essential piece, at least for me. Because although I get the business case for equity, the human case is the one that matters the most to me because I am not a diversity statistic. So bottom line, I didn't need to pitch them. These two straight, openly white, wonderful men were already on board. And they turned out to be the allies I didn't know I ever needed. Because like so many ambitious women and women of color in particular, I had learned to operate in double stealth mode. Doing an end run around the guy who doesn't think that I need a big assignment because it should go to a man with a family to support. I had to sneak in the diversity like I was sneaking in vegetables to a child, sneaking in the hot button issues, with raising the things that I thought we really should talk about. Except all of a sudden, I didn't have to sneak. I was welcome. It was such a weird feeling. And that's when I learned what inclusion was. And now I have you. Well, not specifically you, but people like you, and people maybe who want to be you, and people who work for you, and people who work with you, who write me constantly at Fortune and interact with me online and tell me about their struggles and dreams and how they feel less alone now that this conversation is happening and scaling up, and what the work that they're doing to make sure that we all rise, and she all rise, and we all rise together. My readers are using your research, thank you, and your diversity statistics, thank you, and your stories to persuade reluctant managers to start ERGs and to do anti-bias training, and then just in general be more courageous about talking about the lives that they live. Like grateful FBI agents who wrote to me to thank me about a column I wrote about James Comey. Don't panic, I can defend this. Do you know where he was going the day he got fired? This is a take you're not going to hear anyplace else, so I'm kind of proud of it. He was on his way to a diversity and inclusion event. I know. Not only was he on his way to a diversity and inclusion event, he was like the biggest ally in law enforcement and was so, you should Google this, his speeches after police shootings, whether they were FBI related or not, were incredible and incredibly articulate on the subject. And he needs to be. 85% of agents are white, and nearly 70% of those agents are white men. So I don't know how you think about your organizations, but I think a federal law enforcement that actually reflects the demographic of the communities they serve is a pretty good idea. But most of the times, people just tell me the tender stuff of their lives, the complexity of what it means to be behind the diversity statistics. I'm going to just check my notes because I want to get this right. Like the executive who shared her anger and shame when her son was singled out during a neighborhood gathering as the culprit behind a missing baseball glove. They're the only Black family in an all-white suburb living the cul-de-sac dream. And the people who confronted me, she said, look like the people I work with. Not only was she worried that she wasn't being paid properly, she was worried that they would never see her as an equal, that she's raising this magnificent grandson of former sharecroppers and not a suspect. Or the chief inclusion officer at an architecture firm who found out there were all these complaints about the one Black architect that they had, who was like a unicorn anyway, because he was often late to this one particular site visit. And turns out he and his fancy Audi were being pulled over by the police routinely. A humiliating conversation to have. She saved his job, and they all started carpooling, which probably sounds like the world's worst ride. The fix was temporary, and then she was glad she was on it, but we all now understand that society remains broken. After I wrote about Nelson Ellis, the breakout star of HBO's True Blood, who died of alcohol withdrawal, there was opioids also involved because he was too ashamed to seek treatment. 3 women wrote to me and said that they were going to get themselves evaluated with the full support of their employers and families, because once it gets out there, once we start talking about these things, it makes a difference. Now I pray to the higher power of your choice that they found peace, but I pray harder for the millions of women and men and gender non-binary people all around the world who have no access to peace or a safe place or the education or the resources or the meaningful work they need to transform their worlds. And I lament the loss of their contributions. So in this year ahead, we have to find ways to become that safe place for each other, and accepting that all of this is complicated is part of that work, making room consistently for other people and holding each other accountable when we don't. So, when I was in my 30s, my boss assaulted me in the back of a taxi. It was bad. We were leaving a work event, just another work event. He was giving me the blah blah and what's going to happen the next day, just like he always does. And I had completely forgotten about it. I had just put it in a box, put the lid on the box, and just went on with my day and my life. And you know when I remembered it? It was the Access Hollywood tape. You know, I'm just automatically, they don't even ask. When you're a star, they let you do it, that whole thing. Because at the end of that conversation, or that leaked audio, he shook a bottle of Tic Tacs. And it was that sound. The taxi driver, who had done nothing for whatever reason, was frozen, had left the meter running. And it was the sound of the Tic Tacs that reminded me. So here I am listening to this video and worrying about what I'm going to write in my column. And in the shock of that moment, with bile in my throat, I found myself looking into that box, filled with all kinds of other things that I had tried to forget. And by the way, I had to expense my own assault. He stuck me with the taxi bill. The casual racism is in that box, the dismissive remarks, the oogling, not to mention the taxis I didn't get into ever again, the happy hours I never went to, the pitches I never gave, and how I rarely ever shared anything about my personal life with people because I was just too afraid of opening the door. But remembering that story and thinking about International Women's Day and the work that you do and the work that I now get to do with you and all the things that we need to think about in the Me Too moment and the times that moment that we live in now, reminded me again that this work is about finding and addressing the opportunity costs of shutting women out. All of the costs and all of the women. Yes, without equality, the cost of innovation is too high. Yes, without equality, the cost of the corporate bottom line is too high. Yes, without equality, the cost of the personal wealth of women of all colors and marginalized groups of all genders is too high. But what I see now, thanks to you and the rattle of Tic Tacs, is that the state of inequality means that we lose our ability to be wise too. Operating from a defensive crouch in stealth mode meant that the majority of advice I gave and I got was about survival, gaming the system, not bringing forth the best in me or you, not about authentic leadership. And everyone has their own version of this. You know, don't put personal pictures on your desk. Don't wear your hair like that. If you want to get in the head of this company, make sure he thinks it's his idea. Watch out, he gets handsy after conferences. Or stop telling people your last name is a slave name. It's not the icebreaker you think it is. I always try to work it in when I can. So what I want is for this to be the year we reclaim that. Now, the clock isn't working, but I'm hoping I'm right on time here. I wanted to leave you with something a little bit more optimistic in your head than the sound of taxi meters and Tic Tacs. So do you remember when Congresswoman Maxine Waters went toe-to-toe with Treasury Secretary Mnuchin, who was failing to answer her question at this public thing, reclaiming my time. I was going to play it for you, but they assured me that you would absolutely have remembered it because it went viral. Auntie Maxine, you know, she has inspired millions of women, many of them are not her constituents, to think about ways to reclaim their time and get their work done. Well, I stumbled upon this gospel riff on that theme that became, for me, the perfect anthem of how I wanted to face the world now. So I thought I'd dance myself off stage by showing it to you now. So if we could roll it. This is a young man named Michael Kilgore, who's a singer and a performer.
You want to talk about the things I've done, but I'm reclaiming my time.
Look at that face.
You want to speak on the battles I've won. Yeah. I'm reclaiming my time. All right. That's not why I brought you here to share.
That's not why.
I'm reclaiming my time.
This is what an ally does. They build on they creatively on the work of others. They amplify their messages. So now when I look in the box, I want to see the way forward, not my painful past. I want the year ahead to be a chance to reclaim all of our authentic leadership voices for ourselves, for our sisters, for our companies, our communities. I'm about to reclaim my panel and have them just walk on stage. Thank you all for having me, for the work that you do. I look forward to reclaiming and rising with all of you.